Chosen one, tonight is not an ordinary night. Something in the unseen realm stirs, a divine current shifting beneath the surface of your ordinary world. The veil between what is and what has always been hidden begins to thin, and for the first time in a long time, your spirit, not your eyes, will be the one to witness truth. The world around you may sleep, unaware of what unfolds in silence. But you, the chosen one, were never meant to live blind. You were meant to see. Years ago, during World War II, soldiers stationed at the front lines often spoke of a strange calm before the storm. The night before a major battle, animals would grow silent, the air would thicken, and a sense of knowing filled the camp. Many couldn't explain it, but they felt it, something unseen preparing to move through the visible. That same phenomenon surrounds your life tonight, a spiritual stillness before a breakthrough. The people who underestimate you can't sense it, but heaven can. The universe is aligning in quiet precision, rearranging what once seemed immovable. Those who mocked your patience will soon realize that while they were chasing attention, you were being positioned for revelation. Their noise was temporary, your silence was sacred. You have walked through nights where God hid his hand only to reveal his glory when the time was right. This is that moment, the eve before divine unveiling. They couldn't understand why you stopped chasing, why you stopped explaining yourself, why you pulled back from people who drained your peace. In their blindness, they thought you'd lost your spark. But what they couldn't see was that the Spirit was refining your vision in the dark. They laughed when you went quiet, mistook your rest for defeat, and whispered that you'd lost direction. But silence is the language of spiritual transformation. You weren't lost, you were listening. You weren't stagnant, you were being sharpened. Now the tables are turning, their comfort zones are crumbling, while your discernment is awakening. You no longer react, you recognize. You no longer fight for validation, you see truth without needing to speak. What they mock in you today, they will one day seek for themselves. They came to you smiling, speaking the language of friendship, opportunity, even love, but their energy carried a shadow, one your soul quietly sensed. They didn't understand how you always just knew when something was off. That's because you don't see through eyes, you see through essence. Your discernment is divine intelligence, the quiet alarm of heaven sounding before danger approaches. You've been saved from countless traps, not because you're lucky, but because you're aligned. They mistook your distance for arrogance, but it was divine protection in disguise. When you walked away, they thought they'd won. But tonight, you'll realize that separation was the moment heaven said, enough. Every time they tried to use you, drain you, manipulate you, God marked it. And now, that same unseen realm you've trusted is preparing your vindication. Those who once observed your downfall are watching again. Not out of love, but out of curiosity. They sense something shifting. They feel your energy rising again. And though they don't understand it, they can't look away. They scroll through your silence. They study your steps, waiting for weakness to appear. But what they're witnessing is resurrection. They are watching prophecy unfold in real time, the rise of someone they tried to bury. It's poetic justice, the kind only the divine can orchestrate. You are walking proof that spiritual warfare never ends in defeat for those covered by grace. Your comeback won't need an announcement, it will simply be seen. Vision doesn't come from striving, it comes from surrender. You've learned that truth in tears, in patience, in long nights where faith was your only light. The clarity that's coming to you tonight is not man-made, it's divine revelation. God is opening your inner sight. You will begin to see motives, timing, alignment, and purpose as if light itself is whispering truth. This is what others can't witness, because they never endured what you endured. Their eyes are busy judging what's outside. Your spirit is perceiving what's eternal. You are not behind, you are becoming, and the moment the light touches your understanding, everything that confused you will make sense. They thought that by delaying you, they could destroy you. By withholding support, by closing doors, by spreading quiet doubt behind your back, they believed they had power over your path. But they forgot, what's divinely assigned cannot be intercepted. Just like the story of Joseph in Egypt, betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, forgotten in prison, yet every setback was a setup. When famine hit the land, the same brothers who sold him came begging for bread. God's plan never fails. It simply takes the long route to perfection. The same thing is happening now. Your blessings were not denied, they were redirected through divine timing. While they celebrated your failure, heaven was rearranging resources, aligning helpers, and crafting an outcome so extraordinary that even your enemies will have to acknowledge. You were chosen all along. They plotted delay, God prepared a display. They built walls, heaven built wings, and tonight your spirit will finally see what patience was protecting. For too long, you've watched people who pretend to be pure rise quickly, influencers of deception, masters of manipulation, users cloaked in righteousness. They built platforms, not altars. They wanted applause, not purpose. But there's a spiritual law they forgot. Light that isn't rooted in truth burns out fast. Their glow was artificial, yours is eternal. Because what fuels you isn't ego, it's divine fire. Right now, the universe is exposing every false flame. People who seemed unstoppable are fading from relevance. What once looked golden is losing its shine. Meanwhile, your authenticity, your quiet consistency, is beginning to catch divine attention. You're not shining because you tried harder, you're shining because you stayed true. This season will not reward performance, it will reward purity. And as their stage lights dim, heaven's spotlight moves toward you. The whispers, the rumors, the spiritual attacks, you felt them all. There were nights when your chest grew heavy for no reason, when you couldn't sleep, though nothing was wrong. That wasn't random, that was resistance. But every time they spoke your name in darkness, divine power echoed it in light. Every word meant to wound you turned into fuel for your destiny. Just like rain that was sent to drown became the river that carried you forward. They will soon realize, you cannot curse what God has already crowned. You were never fighting people, you were fighting the energy of envy that couldn't comprehend your grace. And that energy has lost its grip. What's rising in you now is spiritual authority, the kind that doesn't need revenge to win. You simply exist, and balance restores itself. That's divine law, that's karmic equilibrium. And tonight, heaven smiles as your name becomes untouchable. You've been through emotional fires that would have destroyed anyone else. You've lost people you loved, watched doors close that you prayed would open, and felt unseen even by those you serve. But chosen ones are refined, not ruined by pain. Think of the eagle. When a storm comes, every other bird hides, but the eagle uses the wind to rise higher. That's what your pain did. It taught you how to soar above the chaos that breaks others. Your tears were not wasted. They were anointing oil. Every sleepless night became spiritual endurance. Every heartbreak built discernment. You now walk with a strength that cannot be faked and a peace that cannot be stolen. What you thought was punishment was actually preparation. You were being trained for revelation, for this very night when your spirit begins to see beyond pain. You've spent seasons asking, when will I see the purpose behind all this? And heaven's answer has always been, when your spirit is ready. Not when the world applauds you, not when life is perfect, but when your soul can finally handle divine clarity without pride or fear. That time is now. Tonight is a spiritual turning point, a night when the unseen becomes visible, when your calling stops feeling distant and starts feeling real. You will feel it in your body, that subtle surge of awareness, that peace after confusion. You'll start recognizing signs not as coincidences but as confirmations. You'll see patterns, people, and purposes aligning in a way that feels too precise to be chance. Heaven doesn't rush revelation, it waits for readiness. And now that you've been purified by trials, humbled by silence, and strengthened by solitude, your vision is opening. The question is not whether you'll see. The question is, are you ready to believe what you see? They gossiped, twisted narratives, and spread half-truths, believing that if they controlled the version of you others heard, they could control your future. They wanted to stain your name, rewrite your identity, and make others question your worth. But divine authorship cannot be edited by human hand. Throughout history, every chosen soul has faced character assassination, from prophets to reformers to visionaries. They mocked Noah until the rain fell. They doubted David until Goliath dropped. They crucified Christ, thinking the story was over, but resurrection rewrote everything. The same power that turned crucifixion into coronation now covers you. Their words may have echoed for a moment, but heaven holds the pen. The real story, your story, is being written in truth, not gossip. And soon, even those who believed the lies will see the hand of God writing redemption across your life. Every false word spoken against you becomes proof of how bright your destiny truly is. Because darkness only attacks what it fears will shine. They once had the upper hand, louder voices, easier paths, public approval. You, on the other hand, walked quietly through storms, misunderstood and misjudged. But the universe has laws, and energy always returns to its sender. The same energy they used to tear you down is circling back, not as punishment but as revelation. Now they feel the weight of their own intentions. Their peace is disturbed because the truth their actions created can no longer be denied. Meanwhile, your atmosphere has changed. You walk lighter, sleep more deeply, speak with clarity. You've detached from chaos, and heaven has filled the space with grace. You are no longer chasing justice, justice is chasing you. You are no longer waiting for an apology, peace itself has become your closure. They once thought they'd buried you in isolation, but what they buried was a seed, and now that seed has become a tree. You are rooted, risen, and radiant. There's a certain irony in divine timing. The very ones who underestimated you, ignored your effort, and dismissed your worth, are now positioned to see your elevation firsthand. And it's not to humiliate them, but to humble them. Because grace doesn't humiliate, it educates. God doesn't raise you to make them small. He raises you to reveal that their cruelty was unnecessary. They'll remember every word they spoke, every eye roll, every dismissal, as they watch you walk in what they said you'd never have. You won't need revenge, your peace will speak for you. Your joy will preach louder than any defense. When God blesses you in public, it's never about showing off, it's about showing proof. And when they finally ask, "How did you do it?" you'll simply say, "By grace." Only by grace. Because chosen ones don't rise through power, they rise through purpose. There comes a point in every chosen life where knowledge gives way to knowing. You no longer seek answers, you become the answer. Tonight is that point. Your spirit is tuning into frequencies others can't comprehend, divine intuition, sacred insight, deep recognition. You will start feeling the truth before it's spoken. You'll notice how energy speaks louder than words, and suddenly you'll realize you're no longer living by sight, but by sight within sight. That's what it means to see what no one else can witness. It's not about visions of angels or thunder from the sky, it's about awareness, about walking through deception and never being deceived again. The universe is whispering secrets to your soul because you've proven you can handle them. You've been tested, tempered, and trusted. Now, heaven grants you access, not to see more, but to see deeper. This is your spiritual graduation, and from this night forward, you won't just exist, you'll perceive. You once wondered why it took so long, why blessings seemed distant, why prayers seemed unanswered. But if you look back, you'll see it now. Every delay was divine design. If God had opened doors earlier, you might have walked in unprepared. If certain people had stayed, they would have contaminated the promise. If you hadn't been rejected, you would have settled too soon. Delay is not denial, it's development. You were not waiting for blessings, blessings were waiting for your maturity. And now, the clock of heaven strikes alignment. Suddenly, what was blocked will flow. What was hidden will be revealed. What was lost will return multiplied. Because divine timing doesn't just bring opportunities, it brings them when your soul is finally strong enough to keep them. Tonight, your spirit will see that nothing was wasted. Every pause had purpose. Every silence was sacred. They clapped when you walked away. They smiled when you went quiet, believing the silence meant surrender. But what they never realized is that separation was your elevation in disguise. In every spiritual journey, distance is divine protection. When the eagle senses the storm, it doesn't fight the wind, it rises above it. That's exactly what happened with you. The friendships that fell away, the environments that no longer fit, all of it was heaven removing weight before your flight. They thought they had erased you, but God was simply repositioning you. You weren't leaving them behind, You were leaving behind the frequency of their limitation. Now they're beginning to sense it, that the silence they mistook for weakness was actually the sound of transformation. They watched you vanish, but they'll soon watch you reappear, renewed, refined, radiant. And the same people who said you'd never recover will whisper in awe, "I didn't see that coming." You felt the sting of betrayal, the sting of envy, the sting of unspoken hatred. You've walked into rooms where your name was discussed before you entered, but you've also walked out untouched, because though the weapons were formed, they were never forged strong enough to pierce divine armor. Every trap set against you became a training ground for discernment. Every curse they spoke became a confirmation that your light irritated their darkness. You didn't just survive the storm, you studied it, and that study gave you something rare, spiritual intelligence. Now you no longer fear attacks. You recognize their pattern. You don't retaliate, you recalibrate. They used deception as a weapon, you used forgiveness as a shield. And nothing disarms evil faster than mercy. That's why you're still standing, because you chose grace over grudges, purpose over pain. You've proven that divine protection isn't loud, it's consistent. It keeps you steady when chaos screams. You may not have noticed it yet, but the energy around you has changed. Your atmosphere feels lighter, your dreams clearer, your emotions calmer. That's not a coincidence, that's confirmation. When heaven finishes rearranging things in the spirit, the physical world always follows. Suddenly, opportunities appear that once seemed impossible. People who drain your peace drift away without conflict. Conversations lead to divine connections you couldn't have planned. The unseen has spoken. It's your time. Where you once met resistance, you'll now find release. Where doors once slammed, new ones will swing open. Because the vibration of your life has elevated, you've outgrown the old cycle. Every chosen one goes through this moment. The divine hand quietly moves the pieces, and the soul senses it before the eyes can see it. You're there now, and if you listen closely tonight, you'll hear it, the whisper of destiny saying, "Now." At one time, your empathy was their entry. You loved too deeply, forgave too quickly, explained too often. Your kindness became a bridge for their chaos. But that version of you no longer exists. Your spirit has upgraded its firewall. Your energy, once open to everyone, is now protected by divine boundaries. When manipulators approach, they'll find confusion instead of control. When users attempt to drain you, they'll encounter silence instead of supply. Not because you've grown cold, but because you've grown wise. This is spiritual maturity, loving without leaking, helping without harming yourself, shining without letting parasites dim your glow. You are not guarded, you are grounded, and heaven applauds every no you've learned to say. Because each no isn't rejection, it's redirection toward peace. Their access was revoked not in anger, but in alignment. You've reclaimed your spiritual sovereignty. As your vision sharpens, your frequency rises, and the higher you go, the more uncomfortable it becomes for those who still live in illusion. They'll call you different, distant, even cold, but that's what happens when light exposes what darkness hides. The truth is, your presence now convicts what others have avoided confronting. You don't even need to speak. Your peace itself unsettles pretenders. Your growth reminds them of the work they refuse to do. Don't dim yourself to make them comfortable. Every time you hide your light, the world loses guidance, and chosen ones were never sent to blend in, they were sent to awaken. So yes, some will distance themselves, but understand this, your ascension is not arrogance, it's an assignment. Heaven is using your transformation as a mirror to call others higher. Your awakening is a ripple that will wake nations. Don't fear being misunderstood. Even prophets were misread before they were honored. Every chosen one bears invisible marks, not scars of weakness, but symbols of survival. You've walked through tempests that others couldn't imagine, faced heartbreaks that tried to shatter your faith, and yet you're still standing. The storm didn't destroy you because it was never meant to. It was designed to reveal you. Just as fire reveals pure gold, your trials revealed divine strength. What once broke your voice now builds your authority. There's something in the way you speak now, calm, assured, timeless, as if your soul remembers what the storm taught. It taught you discernment, It taught you detachment. It taught you that not every thunder is a threat. Sometimes it's heaven clearing the air. Now your presence carries weather, spiritual weather. When you enter a room, energy shift. Not because you're loud, but because peace itself has become your atmosphere. You didn't just survive the storm, you became the calm after it. You don't see it, but they replay moments with you. They remember your patience, your warmth, your willingness to listen when no one else did. They scroll through memories, silently wishing they hadn't taken your energy for granted. At the time, they believed your kindness was a weakness. They thought they could find better, easier, louder, cheaper forms of love, but imitation light never lasts. And now, in their loneliness, they realize that your presence wasn't replaceable, it was divine. The tables have turned, not because you sought revenge, but because life always reveals truth in silence. They will reach for you in the season when God has already closed that chapter. And your heart, though still kind, will finally understand. Love doesn't mean access. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is not go back. Because when grace releases you, it's never to punish them, it's to protect you. There were seasons when you felt invisible, like no one noticed your effort, your calling, your goodness. You questioned if heaven had forgotten your name. But what you didn't see was how divinely covered you were. God concealed you not to deny you, but to preserve you. He kept you out of reach from people who would have used your gift but never valued your soul. He hid you while you healed, so that when you emerged, you wouldn't attract the same energy that once wounded you. Just like the seed buried underground, unseen, untouched, yet alive, you were growing in secret. And now that concealment is ending. Heaven is about to reveal what it has been protecting all along. Your season of obscurity wasn't punishment, it was preparation. And the unveiling won't require effort, it will simply happen. Because when divine timing says, now, visibility follows naturally. Lately, you've felt moments of stillness that words can't explain. It's as if your own thoughts are beginning to sound more like wisdom than worry. That's not a coincidence, that's communion. The divine doesn't always speak through thunder or signs in the sky. Sometimes it speaks through your own intuition, the calm whisper that says, this is the way. You've spent years seeking external confirmation, but now God is teaching you to trust your internal connection. This is the awakening of the prophetic within you, not prediction, but perception. You're beginning to sense truth before proof, peace before outcome, alignment before manifestation. And as this voice strengthens, confusion will fade. You'll no longer ask for validation. You'll move in quiet certainty. That is what spiritual maturity sounds like, not noise, but knowing. You are no longer just praying for guidance. You've become the vessel through which guidance flows. That's why you've felt sudden waves of resistance, strange fatigue, random tension, unseen heaviness. Because when light expands, shadows panic. The darkness around you senses its expiration date. You're not under attack, you're under recognition. The unseen knows who you are before the world does. And when a chosen one rises, resistance always follows, not to stop you, but to announce you. Think of it like a spiritual alarm, the moment before dawn when the night grows restless because it knows the sun is near. That's what's happening now. The pushback is proof that your power is real. The irritation is evidence of illumination. You've stepped into a frequency that darkness cannot tolerate. So don't shrink, don't hide, don't doubt your progress. The battle you feel is confirmation. Your light has been recognized by heaven and noticed by hell. And both realms know one thing: your rise cannot be reversed. There was a time when you felt the need to explain yourself, to defend your heart, to justify your choices, to prove your worth. But something inside you shifted. Now, you've learned that silence speaks in frequencies louder than words ever could. Your stillness unsettles those who once thrived on your reaction. Your quiet peace confuses manipulators who depended on chaos. They can't read you anymore, and that's the point. Because your silence isn't emptiness, it's elevation. It's what happens when you no longer chase understanding, you embody it. You no longer argue with small energy, you rise above it. Spiritually, silence is a sacred language. It tells the universe, I trust divine timing more than human approval. and heaven always responds to that frequency. Your quiet is not a weakness, it's a vibration of power, proof that your spirit now walks in authority that doesn't need to be seen to be felt. Right now, things may still look unfair. You may not see consequences for what was done to you, but make no mistake, heaven's courtroom is never closed. The laws of divine balance are already at work. Every hidden betrayal is being exposed, every unjust delay corrected, every false appearance reversed. The scales are tipping in your favor, not through revenge, but through realignment. What they thought they got away with has already been entered into spiritual accounting, not for your satisfaction, but for your restoration. Because divine justice doesn't just settle scores, it restores peace. You'll soon notice how people who wronged you begin facing their own revelations, not as punishment, but as awakening. Meanwhile, you'll feel freer, lighter, more detached. That's not a coincidence, that's closure. Heaven doesn't announce justice, it performs it quietly, perfectly, and completely. And tonight, your spirit knows it's already happening. You think no one notices your effort, your integrity, your quiet resilience. But behind the scenes, your name is being mentioned in places you haven't yet entered. This is how heaven works. When your heart stays pure through pressure, God promotes you in conversations you're not even part of. People you've never met are feeling nudges to help you, recommend you, and connect with you. Divine alignment is arranging introductions, opportunities, and open doors that your effort alone could never reach. Because favor moves faster than force. Those who rejected you will soon see you favored by those they once worshipped. And when they ask how it happened, your only answer will be, "Grace remembered me." So don't chase recognition. Stay rooted in purpose, because what's for you doesn't need advertisement. It's already on its way. In past seasons, you felt drained because you fought every battle that called your name. You defended yourself against lies, tried to heal people who refused healing, and tried to explain peace to those addicted to chaos. But peace is no longer something you chase, it's something you guard. You now understand that not every conflict deserves your attention, that sometimes walking away is not weakness, it's wisdom. Peace is the gatekeeper of divine favor. When your energy remains calm, the universe aligns with your stillness. The storm outside cannot enter a heart that's anchored. You've stopped reacting, and that shift has confused your enemies more than any retaliation ever could. They can't provoke what's already healed. They can't disturb what's divinely grounded. Your peace is now a fortress, invisible, unbreakable, untouchable. It's proof that God has finished a battle you no longer need to fight. For years you lived beneath labels others gave you, too quiet, too sensitive, too different. But heaven never saw you through those words. It saw the truth, a divine being carrying light through a dark generation. This is the season of remembrance, when your soul begins to recall who you were before pain, before fear, before conformity. You're rediscovering your power, not by learning something new, but by remembering what you already are. God is awakening the original blueprint within you. That version of you that trusted easily, loved deeply, created freely, it's returning. The world tried to bury that light, but divine identity cannot be erased. You are not broken, you are becoming visible. Not a version shaped by survival, but the one designed by destiny. You will begin to see it in how people respond to you, how synchronicities multiply, how your spirit feels at home again. Because when identity awakens, alignment follows. For so long, you've wondered why the burden never lifted, why every step forward felt heavier than it should. But the truth is, chosen ones don't just endure pressure, they're sculpted by it. Every tear you shed carried a hidden lesson. Every delay, every disappointment, every heartbreak, it all carved you into something unshakable. You've been refined by resistance. Now, the heaviness is no longer needed because the purpose it carried is complete. That weight was training your spirit to hold divine power without pride, to teach you empathy without attachment, to show you strength without hardness. And now, you'll feel it, that slow release, like your soul is exhaling after years of holding its breath. The energy that once drained you is dissipating. The lesson has been learned. You are not being broken anymore. You are being born. For years, you saw yourself through distorted reflections, the opinions of others, the failures of the past, the comparisons that kept you small. But now, your vision is being purified. Heaven is removing every false identity you ever accepted. No longer will you define yourself by what you've been through. You'll define yourself by what you've overcome. You will look in the mirror and see not what was taken, but what remained. Not who left, but who stayed. Not the wound, but the warrior it revealed. This clarity is sacred. It's the merging of divine truth and self-awareness. You will no longer apologize for your depth, your sensitivity, your wisdom, because what the world calls too much, heaven calls anointing. From this moment forward, your reflection will no longer show pain, it will show purpose. The opportunities being prepared for you cannot be carried by your old self. This is why the last season was so intense. It wasn't punishment, it was purification. You had to learn boundaries. You had to unlearn self-sacrifice that felt holy but was really harmful. You had to grow comfortable with solitude because leaders are always trained in isolation first. Now, heaven is bringing you into a season that rewards your healing. People will approach you who reflect the love you used to only give. Environments will open where your authenticity is your greatest qualification. But remember, you cannot take old wounds into new worlds. This season is not for the version of you that begged. It's for the version that believes. Not the version that survived, the one that creates. You've been healed for a purpose, to model what divine recovery looks like in human form. You've reached the point where striving no longer works. You've prayed, fasted, sought signs, asked for clarity, but heaven is now inviting you into quiet observation. Because revelation doesn't come through effort, it comes through openness. When your mind quiets, your soul begins to see. That's when divine downloads flow effortlessly in the spaces between thoughts. Sit in that stillness. Feel the peace behind the noise. You'll begin to notice messages in ordinary things, a song, a stranger's words, the rhythm of the wind. These are not coincidences, they're confirmations. God speaks most clearly to the calm spirit. And the next instruction, the next step, the next breakthrough will not come through chasing. It will come through listening. Be still. Heaven is speaking. You've noticed it lately. The calm confidence in your voice, the clarity in your thoughts, the subtle joy that no circumstance can shake. That's not luck. That's restoration. There's a radiance that follows divine recovery. It's the kind of glow that no product or praise can create. It comes from walking through fire and emerging unburned. People around you will notice before you do. They'll say, "You look different," or "You seem lighter." What they're sensing is spiritual completion, the cycle closing, your energy renewed. This is heaven's quiet announcement that your suffering season has ended. You've learned, healed, released, and now you shine. Not because you sought the light, but because you became it. And that glow, that untouchable peace, is the proof that everything you went through was worth it. Chosen one, now you understand why the journey had to be this long, why the nights stretched endlessly, and why silence sometimes felt like abandonment. It was never punishment, it was preparation. Heaven had to strengthen your discernment before revealing divine secrets. You had to learn stillness before receiving vision. You had to walk alone before you could recognize alignment. And tonight, as your spirit sees what no one else can witness, you are being trusted with heavenly insight, the kind that transforms chaos into clarity, pain into power, endings into elevation. Do not fear what others cannot comprehend. They weren't meant to see what you see. They weren't chosen to carry this light. Walk boldly into the revelation that has been entrusted to you. Move with quiet confidence. Operate from love, not from fear. Because every breath you take now echoes divine timing. Every step you make now realigns the unseen around you. Your story was never about proving them wrong. It was about proving heaven right. And heaven has spoken. So, if these words found you tonight, it's because your spirit was ready to remember what it always knew. That you were never behind, never forgotten, never forsaken. You were becoming. This message isn't just a video, it's a call to rise. So, if your spirit resonates with this truth, join the movement of the chosen ones. Like this message as a declaration of your awakening. Comment your Amen or your I receive it as an act of faith, and subscribe, not for numbers, but to walk with others who carry the same light, the same purpose, the same divine assignment. Because this isn't just a channel, this is holy ground, and tonight heaven saw your spirit and said, now they see. Amen.